Hello, guys. I am just going to be doing my first voiceover because I just didn't take the time to do it when I was actually recording this damn video. Anyways, this is a Xbox Series S, the 1 terabyte model. Came in for a broken HDMI. Um, Pretty beat up actually, but I mean, apparently it got kicked or the cord got kicked and broke the port. Camera. Sorry for all the awesome stuff that's going on the screen right now with the camera. My overhead is not fully configured yet, so I'm just getting everything kind of just ready to rock and roll and see what kind of stuff I can do. The autofocus is terrible. I mean, it works, but I got to get rid of all of that crap that's on the screen there. Um, So yeah, I'm just gonna run through a disassembly of this thing and an HDMI swap. I should have everything showing for everybody to watch. It's the first one I've kind of done fully through with overhead, and then of course having a microscope view as well once we get into the actual HDMI replacement. So yeah, no, it's kind of a fun little um, operation here that I got going on, just a small little shop downstairs in my basement. I just do repairs kind of on the side, and don't really do too much volume as of yet. I'm just kind of doing it as I can do it because I do have a full-time job that keeps me pretty busy. Maybe one day I can stop and just focus on this stuff. Anyway, enough rambling. Yeah, so I'm using the hot air gun right here just to loosen the stickers off so we can get into the console and then put them back so it looks like we never took it apart. So a little bit of heat at 100 degrees Celsius is what I'm using there to take the stickers off in my X-Acto blade. The X-Acto blade it works okay for getting under the sticker, but I always find it kind of dents it, so I'm looking for a better tool to use for that. Maybe one of those flat um, X-Acto blades might work a little better, but it does work really good for getting the plastic getting underneath it, anyways. So yeah, there's that, and we're gonna get into the screw disassembly. This is gonna take a little bit of time to get through everything. I'll probably end up fast forwarding through a lot of this process, but for now I'll keep things just in step-by-step format until some editing comes by later. But yeah, so the Xbox Series S is actually a pretty easy console to get into. It's literally two screws on the bottom there. Once you have those two off, you can flip the console over just like you see me doing there. And I always like to start with the green screws. The green screws is what actually holds the console down to the top cover. So once you get those out of the way, you'll be able to remove the entire casing as one piece. Which is this is definitely by far my favorite console to take apart. It's super easy, super fast to get the board out of. But yeah, you start with the green screws. That way the other shorter ones, which are the gold screws, you can see them up in the top right hand corner. They are basically just holding all of the power supply, disk drive, and certain things into the frame. So you don't have to take those off right away until you actually get the green screws out. And once that's done, you can basically separate everything in kind of a systematic order. You can see me messing with the camera there. It's the reflection off of the um, metal there for whatever reason really messes with the auto exposure on the camera. Something else I need to kind of get set on the overhead is get rid of the menus, get rid of all of the all the auto tracking stuff that you see going on there. And obviously I'm gonna have to fix the auto exposure. Um, something that's not changing all the time because it's super annoying. Sometimes it looks really good, and sometimes like if it's getting really really good reflection off of the silver, it'll just darken it right down to the point where you can't see it, which is not really what we're going for on this thing. Anyway, so I've got the green screws out as you can see, and we're just rocking here with getting all the screws out of the front control board and side Wi-Fi cards. I think on here there are 3 separate boards if I remember correctly. So I just get rid of the first 2 and just kind of put everything aside. The really nice thing about this thing is really easy to remember all the screws because they're all pretty much the same. It's the little black machine screws that hold in the boards. They're all the same. They're actually the same one that holds the X clamp down to the board. Well, actually to the bottom frame piece. So yeah, and then there's 3 more over here. So all the black machine screws are the same. You don't have to worry about interchanging those. They're perfectly fine. So yeah, I'm just going to continue here, taking this last couple screws out of here, and then we should get down to the nitty gritty of the insides of this thing. Okay, so I've got the top off here, and we're going to keep tearing into it here. The top isn't held on by anything once you have the screws out. It's just sitting there kind of press fit, so it just lifts off. So once I have all of that off, the board's off, then I start going for the gold screws, as you see me doing here. The gold screws, like I said, they hold the things like the power supply to the board, the disk drive, also. All of that stuff is held in by those little gold screws. There's not very many of them. I think there's 5 or 6. I can't remember. Um, but again, yeah, this exposure thing really sucks. I gotta really fix that up. It's super annoying to see it go in and out. I'll probably end up fixing the focus as well. I think I'm gonna have to the autofocus is nice. I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it on. It's nice because when you move the console around, as soon as you move it into any other position, it's gonna lose the focus. It's just maybe just have to kind of pay attention to how I'm moving my arm across the screen so the camera doesn't do that. The big thing about this stream, this first one, is to actually make sure I'm keeping everything in the shot. I know it sounds kind of stupid, but it's really easy not to be working underneath the camera because I'm not really, too used to it yet. But there goes the power supply. That just lifts out. It literally just sits on that little connector right below my left hand there. It's like a pressure fit thing, so you don't really have to worry about any screws or anything. Once those gold ones are out from the bottom, it'll just fall out basically. So just be aware of that when you flip it over. Fan connector is pretty secured on these if they've never been taken apart, so just go easy. I like to rock back and forth on the sides just gently. Make sure that you don't pull it out and on an angle, because that's really what'll kill it super super fast, is by doing it that way. So yeah, once you get that kind of stuff kind of out of the way, the last thing really is to unhook the heatsink. This is how it's held to the bottom bracket. So once that's all those 4 black screws are out, you just have to remove a little tiny clip, which is coming up as soon as my fingers speed up here a little bit better. You'll see the little tiny clip that kind of just sits right above the front USB port. Not really too sure why they put it in there. It's kind of useless, but it's just like this little piece that I guess provides some grounding or shielding. I don't know. It doesn't really make too much sense. They didn't really need it there, but we're almost to that point now, and you can watch my autofocus fail over and over again here. Yeah. It is what it is. I'm certainly not used to filming things like this. I can do it, but it's going to take some practice before I'm actually doing it properly, and get it up to the YouTube standards that are out there. Anyway, so yeah, I'm down to the board here. Heatsink is going to pop off at this point, or you can pull the entire board out. I usually like to take it out just like this. Sorry, the heatsink doesn't come off yet. You need to get the X clamp off first. But so now we've got the board out. The heatsink's still attached, and the X clamp has to come off in order for the heatsink to come off. I don't know why I'm trying to pull it off. I'm an idiot here. I know I have to get the X clamp off, so I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, I don't have that fancy little tool that you see out there, everybody using, the X clamp tool they call it. Um, I've had relatively good success with. I mean, I have a pretty decent terminal screwdriver here I'm using, and if you just wedge it off of the post there, it feels bad. It feels like you're breaking it, but it will literally let it go on both. As you pry, the other side will actually pop off, and then you just have to do it to two sides. And once you have both sides free, so gonna switch over into the microscope mode. Take you in here to show you. Hopefully, yeah, there's the damage there on the right hand side. You can see the pins are all smushed. That's typical damage when a port is kicked to the side. Um, I see a lot of that actually, where you can tell something's caught the cord and it just literally just smashes out the inside of the HDMI port. There's not a whole lot of give there. The Xbox Series actually is far less forgiving when it comes to that kind of stuff because it doesn't break off the board like the PS5. PS5s are really, really weak for whatever reason. I don't quite understand what the deal is there, but they can snap off the board quite easily. But the Xbox, not so much. I don't see like internal broken pin damage as much on the Xbox. I see more of the broken inside connector, which you just saw there. It's pretty typical on the Xbox. The Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X port replacements are slightly different because of the thickness of the Xbox Series X. It does take more heat to get those ports off, so you got to really be careful of that ESD booster on these. Like not so much on these, but on the Xbox Series X, that booster is quite close. So you really need to kind of pay attention and make sure that you're not, um, basically cooking it to the point where you float it. Because if you float it and you don't have, what size balls were those again for that thing? 0.025 for the ST booster. I actually ended up ordering some because I did just that, and yeah, you need that thing on there unless you want to do an ESD bypass, which I've had relatively good success with those, but yeah, I'm not really too sure why the ESD booster is so hard to get your hands on, or at least it was. It seems to be easy now. There's a bunch of different alternative boards out there now too. But yeah, so anyways, I've pulled the port off there. There is the old port. I didn't show that on camera for some stupid reason. I'm really not too sure why. Um, anyways, it is what it is. I'll be bringing it back under focus to show everybody it is now removed. And I did that at 480 degrees, 100%. Actually, it's 120% airflow on this. Um, 861 is what I'm using for a hot air station, which is a little bit cheaper than the one that a lot of the guys use, the Atten stuff. It's good too, but yeah. So basically, You just got to be careful. Go easy. There, you see the ESD booster there up in the top left-hand corner. That's what you need to be careful of keeping the heat away from. You do not want to mess with that. And I actually looks like a pad started to come loose here. And because the pad started coming loose, I stopped. I've learned that it's not worth trying to work around a loose pad like that. It's better off that you, before you put any more crap on the board or contaminate anything else with flux, it's easier if you just stop, take care of the pad. And the way that I take care of the pads these days, when something like this happens, is I have some clear UV mask. It's really, really good because it cures super, super quickly. So what you'll see me doing here is putting UV mask around that pad, and I actually do kind of like um, intentionally like flood it, so that the UV mask is all over it, just so that it makes sure that I get a good stick when I actually cure it. And because the clear UV is a more translucent, it will actually cure where a green mask won't. So, like in the case of under the pad, the light will actually travel through the clear UV and allow it to harden underneath. Whereas the green stuff isn't that good. At least in this situation, the green stuff is good for more of a top application. But you can see here that I'm flooding that pad on purpose, completely on purpose. I'm doing that. You can always scratch away UV mask, right? It's and I of course I've got way too much on here. You'll see me take it off here in a minute, but yeah. So I try and get it all around that pad so that when I cure, it's going to cure that pad back to the board. And then once that's cured back, you don't have to worry about anything happening to that now because it's basically it's stuck again. Now, the one thing you need to be careful of on HDMI ports is creating any like super uneven ridges on the board. You definitely do not want to do that. You want an HDMI port to lay down nice and flat. It's basically the more flat you make this process, the easier time you're going to have with a hot swap or hot drop or whatever they call it. I don't have a special term for it. I just heat the board from the bottom, wait for the solder to not solidify, for it to go molten, and then once it's molten, then I'll drop the port on. This one I think was kind of a bit of a rough drop if I remember correctly, but you see me cleaning up that mask there. So now it's time for the UV light. Like I said, that clear mask works really, really good, and it cures super, super fast. So for stuff like this, anytime I'm working within like on pads or trying to secure stuff, the white UV mask or the semi-translucent UV mask is really, really good. Let me see if I can get a part number off of it here for everybody. I think I got this from AliExpress. It's the Mechanic 3S Fast Drying, and it's called the new UV Super Quick Drying Ink. Oh, it actually says it's to stabilize pads, so there you go. So you can do all sorts of stuff with it. It's kind of like you saw when I was putting it on there. It's kind of like a milky kind of semi-translucent, and it kind of cures that way too. If it's thin enough, you barely even see it. It's very, very hard to actually see it if it's a thin enough layer, but yeah, so we just let it cure here, and once it's all cured, we'll continue. This is usually where I take a break. I'm probably in the bathroom or something, who knows. uh, you don't need a whole lot of time on this though. Like it's literally I could have taken it off 30 seconds ago, a minute ago now. Like you literally only need that on there for a very, very short period of time, but I'm going the distance here just so everybody can watch how boring UV curing is. Okay, there we go. She's done. Yep, done. Okay, so you can see there, you can see the result of the UV mask there. It's, like I said, it's translucent, right? So this is where I'm just going to uncover the pad again so that it'll take solder for the new port. But basically, it's going to be very, very close to that. I basically just scratch it back down so that you can, obviously apply solder and flux to it. But that's all it takes to re-secure that pad. That pad was loose, and the problem is working with loose pads is that they only take us a couple times of flexing, and once you flex it more than you should, it's going to break off or it's going to severely weaken the connection. Here I got kind of lucky because it didn't fully lift, and I was able to stick it down right away. But um, if you got loose pads floating around, you'll be sitting there with your cotton swab and cleaning the board, and you know it's there, and you subconsciously think about it, but you still freaking hit the thing. And once you hit it, there's no coming back. Once you break it, you're gonna have to fix it, which is, just more time on an HDMI repair. These stuff does come loose. Like, these boards are not all created equal. Some are totally fine. You won't have any problems. Once in a while, you'll have a bad pull, and you'll loosen one or two of them. The key, of course, is to make sure you get enough board or heat into that board so that you're not putting any excessive pressure on. Because God knows how many um, repair jobs I've had to do because people have just torn it off the board instead of making sure it was hot enough before they could remove it. So, but especially Microsoft boards, I find the PlayStation boards aren't as bad, but Microsoft boards, I don't know what it is. The pads don't seem to be very well secured or adhered to the board. So once in a while, you'll get one that comes off or it gets loose when you pull it off, when you put heat to it. So if you catch it early and you secure it again, you're good, right? And then you can go ahead and this is where I'm just mixing the leaded and unleaded together. My iron is set like shit right here. Definitely not hot enough. I gotta get that. I have the three presets on the machine, but I still, I still prefer not to deal with it and just suffer every time. So here we go. I got the proper heat on the iron tip now. Now I'm just mixing. Once that's done, I will come in with the solder wick and wick up that stuff off the board, and you'll see. Um, I don't get too vigorous with it. I mean, you should be careful with wick when you're using it, anyways. But you want to make sure you get all the old unleaded solder off of there. So, but once that pad's down there with that UV mask, you don't have to worry about being too light on the board. Like, you have a little bit of you can actually put some elbow grease into it within reason, of course. You don't want to go too nuts here. So looks like I'm just getting my wick piece. Yeah, I kind of sometimes I prefer doing it this way. Sometimes I don't. The problem with doing it this way is that if the wick decides to come apart before it starts to suck up solder, you start to get pieces coming out of it. The nice thing about it is because it's a small piece, the heat transfer is awesome, and you can see there that went freaking perfect. I just literally had it on there for a couple seconds. You can see that secured pad over there didn't move. It's fully cleaned off just like the rest of them. So yeah, like I said, a couple extra minutes off the get-go when something like that happens. I've found over the repairs I've done, it's much more worthwhile to take the pain early on, rather than trying to deal with that being broken. I've done it both ways, and I've learned my lesson. And now with that new mask, honestly, I mean, there's no reason not to use it. It works really, really well, and I don't see a lot of people using it yet, but it is available. Okay, so right now I'm just cleaning the board up. Um, Big fat fingers in the way there. Can't really see very much what I'm doing. Here's that newbie ness of my streams. That's the way it's gonna be here for a bit, but we'll get there. We'll get there. We're starting off nice and easy here. So yeah, so there's that cleaned up. Flux is one of those things. I think Joey does tech shows it the best. If you get flux while it's warm, it's super super easy to get off. If you leave it too long, it just becomes a pain in the butt to deal with. But I have noticed lately that doing a couple rounds of the swab and then using see Northridge Fix uses those Kimtech wipes. Honestly, you don't need that crazy. I just use paper towel. I have a roll of paper towel by my desk, and I just basically soak it with alcohol, and I'll wipe it, and then that generally will clean the board up really really good. So right here, I'm noticing. I think that I forgot. Oh no, okay, I'm gonna apply the solder here. So I use two different kinds of flux. I use the Siri general purpose cotton, and I also use the Kimbo RMA. What is it here? I can't remember. RMA 218. This is the same stuff that Coder kind of promotes out there. It's pretty good stuff. And then the Styri is the new kind of Amtech runner up. Uh, that stuff that I use is kind of brown. It's the stuff you see me using here. Um, the Styri V3TF, the Tacky Flux, it's okay. It smells nice and it does its job. It's good for general purpose, like what I'm using it for here. Um, but I think you'll see me. I'm pretty sure I do it on this video where I use the Kimbo when I actually go to put the port down. I find when I'm doing a hot air swap like that, for whatever reason, I think the Tacky Flux actually burns away a little bit quicker than the Kimbo. The Kimbo seems to stay there longer, and I generally don't have any issues when I drop a port down with the Kimbo. I have had issues with the Styri disappearing, because you're applying even with the other fluxes, you're still applying a lot of heat underneath, and it's just too much for that flux for whatever reason. So there you go. There's the Kimbo. I'm using it on the pins. I do pre-tin my ports. Um, if you do it right, you can just literally do it in one swoop. Here, we'll see. I can't remember how good I did on this one. I think it went pretty good. But if you just use a knife tip, put a little bit of solder on your tip, come back with the iron in one swoop, generally speaking, you will get a perfect laydown on the pins here. Let's see how it goes. Oh, 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 yeah, almost perfect. Screwed up on the last one there. There you go, done. Okay, so that's all it takes to pre-tin. That just ensures that you've got between what you've got for the pillows on the board, pre-applied, what you saw me do earlier, and that you've definitely got enough solder to actually adhere, and it generally speaking doesn't over solder, so you don't get pads that look like they're got way too much solder on them, kind of thing. So yeah, I'm gonna take this stuff off of here. I should have done it earlier, but now I missed it's the solder, the mounting solder on the Xbox. The Xbox uses oh, I had a bridge there. Uses those at the very front of the board. You can kind of see the solder there. That actually sticks to a couple little pegs that are in the front, and that's part of the reason why the Xbox port stays down so much better than the PlayStation, because they don't just anchor off the legs, they also anchor off the front there. I forgot to change the solder, so you're going to see me clean that up once I do all of this. But yeah, cleaning up is, I mean, some people do it all the time, some people hate it. I, generally speaking, like to clean up just so I can see. It's not so much of an OCD thing like, Joey does tech is pretty insane with his cleaning. Um, some guys they just like to have a clean board all the time. Honestly, I don't really care until I'm done. Um, but in this case, I want to get all this stereo off of the board because I'm pretty sure I'm going to use the Kimbo here. Um, this also works okay if you just dry dry a drag with a cotton bud. It also works pretty good for getting majority or the bulk off of there. So right now you see I've got the board kind of prepped. I've got solder on all four legs and solder applied to the pads. So now I'm gonna come in here. I'm gonna take care of this because this is the old solder. I forgot to get rid of this earlier. I'm using the Steery here, like the stuff that I want to waste all the time or use all the time. Steery is awesome for that because you need more, you throw more on, and it works well enough that you can um, kind of just like lay it down without caring about how much you're using. Um, I mean, we're using so little here, anyways, because all this stuff is so tiny. But still, it's one of the fluxes. I think I'm actually going to put in the bigger syringe, just so I don't have to change it as often. But I mean, still, like even that with what I'm doing right now, I rarely change um, or have to refill those syringes up. The ground plane on this board is quite dramatic. These are ground points here that I'm cleaning. You need to set your iron really hot to get those off of there with the wick. Um, you also use hot air in addition if hot air is your thing. Um, I try and kind of use a mix, but for this, like you need to be able to turn up your iron pretty substantially to get those ground pads to clean because they just as soon as you put your iron on there, it wants to basically suck all the heat out of it, and you end up with little mountains everywhere instead of pillows. You can see here, like I'm getting kind of mountainous going on. My flux is a little lacking there, but still, doesn't matter. Those are going to be just anchor points anyways. They don't have to be super clean because once we start to actually go and install the new port, once we apply the heat, that's all gonna flatten out anyways. Little more is better for that anyway because you literally are anchoring with it. So okay, so I think the next step is going to be yeah, we should be getting close to doing up the port here. We're just gonna look into La La Land for a couple minutes here for some reason. It's my awesome YouTube superstardom going on there. Oh, back to what we were supposed to be looking at. I don't know what I was. Who knows? Who knows? Okay. Yeah, there you go. You can see the RMAs on there. You can tell the RMA is more of a white clear, milky clear, and the Styria is kind of like a more of a brownish tan kind of color to it. So, like I say, I for dropping ports on, I rather have the Kimbo stuff on there. So, probably getting prepped up here. I like to have everything kind of ready to go. I have usually my port off to. I'm right-handed, and my desk is not set up very good right now, but I usually have my port kind of set up on my bench to the right with my forceps that I grab it with, and then I'll use my start with my right hand on preheating the board, um, and then once that starts to preheat and I'm ready to grab, then I'll switch my hands across and I'll start holding the hot air with my left hand. Okay, you're gonna see everything start to smarten up here. I'm starting to apply heat, changing my mind. Okay, yep. Yeah, I don't know if I've changed hands yet or not, but my right hand is what I typically like to put the ports down. I actually don't like watching the screen when I'm dropping a port. I kind of screwed up here, and it's the reason why I think I had a little bit more trouble than I usually do is because I was watching I was watching the screen instead of actually watching what I was doing. So it's a little rough here when I go to put it on here. Generally speaking, it's a little bit better. You can see everything starting to smarten up there on the pads, like I was saying. Okay, so you can see stuff starting to liquefy. As soon as you start to see the leg liquefy, you can pretty much drop the port down. It'll go through, and then you want to basically just tap the port around a little bit, um, just to ensure that you get good contact with the solder. You want to make sure you get good penetration. Heat transfer on the legs as well is a huge thing. Like I said, these boards are huge. Heat sucks, so yeah, I'm kind of struggling here a little bit. I just said, okay, screw it. Let's back everything off of it for a minute. Reposition. Okay, this is where I just said, okay, press it down, back away, and I'm going to go in for a reflow here. Typically, that's how I like to do it. I like to just get it on there, get it so it's kind of situated. I've knocked it around a couple times. Usually I will apply more flux, but this time I don't think I do. There's still quite a bit on the board, so this is where I'll put the back pressure on the back. And I know a lot of guys say they don't push hard here. Um, I push moderately hard, I guess. I don't know, like not super hard, but I definitely apply pressure. And then you just look, you just watch for that everything to melt. And once you see that, you just give it a little bit. I always like to give it a little extra. I know guys are worried about burning connectors and everything like that, but you can see down below that I am moving the air gun. I'm not keeping it in one spot, which is super important as well. Don't keep the gun in one area because you'll end up putting a lot more heat to the one side of the board, or you're not trying to do that. You're trying to get even distributed heat across the entire thing. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, I've got it down. I'm going to start focusing in here, and we'll be able to see the result of my fun there. Yeah, it's one of those things you kind of have to take it slow, make sure you've got it, right? Like, I always look at the legs. That's one thing I first look at. You want to see that right there. That's what you want to see on the legs. You want to see good heat transfer. You want to make sure that you've got the legs. Even if you don't get them from the top, because I don't think I put quite enough solder on here. Yeah, you can fill it in from the bottom, but that's not the heat transfer. That's not what you want the good heat transfer off the heat gun for the top. Okay, I'm gonna bring you into the pins here. Yeah, they look pretty darn good. It's a bit of a mess right now. I'm gonna probably clean it first. And once we get that done, then it's all cleanup. Basically, we'll go through and make sure everything's nice and secured, and away we go. This is where I actually use alcohol in a spray can. So what I do is it's actually a little spritzer thing. I get my cotton bud and I'll just saturate it. I put the cotton bud right in front and it'll just saturate the cotton bud until it's super saturated with alcohol. That's how I apply it to the thing. I know a lot of guys dip or whatever. I just always find that it keeps everything nice and clean that way. It's not as fast as I would like, but yeah, I mean, he take the punches where you can and roll with the other stuff as you can, right? So yeah, so right now I'm probably looking at it because I'm in the microscope. I can't show board view. I am set up to do multicam, but just getting going here. So here we go. So yeah, basically just like I say, I mean, you want to keep it clean so you can see. I mean, you can look around the ESD booster and go, okay, all my components are still there. I didn't knock anything off because that's one thing you need to watch for too. I mean, when you do this more and more often, you start to get used to how much heat, what you can get away with. Um, if you're not being careful, you'll knock stuff off the board, and then that's even more work, right? Like the whole idea behind. Okay, so here we come with the Exacto blade. I tend to use my tweezers or my exact. I kind of like the feel of Exacto blade a little better, but the whole idea here is to just give those pins a little push and make sure they don't frickin' move, right? They should not move. Should be solid. And as you can see here, solid, 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 like everybody likes to say. Let's go with secure. Okay, these are secure pins, one by one, checking each one, and you don't have to push hard. You should give it a little bit of force, but not, obviously you're not trying to break it, right? So, um, yeah, that baby is on there and it's good. Here is another view of it. I'll lift the board up so you can see all the way to the back of the connector. It's perfect. That port laid down really, really nice, and yeah, it's pretty much done. So I will go through here, and this is where I normally do all the cleaning on the board, just to get it kind of cleaned up a little bit better. Yeah, I'm gonna see it. The solder didn't quite come through the back. It's fine. You want to grab it good on the top and through the middle. But if you don't have perfect pillows at the top, I mean, this is OCD stuff here. You do not have to like add more solder here just to get the shiny ball at the top. I mean, if you want to, I'm doing it here. I don't know why. I usually just leave it, but um, that's more than down. Like you don't have to ever worry about that breaking again. I am using Kester. I think it's 6040, I do believe, for all my general purpose soldering. I have a couple different sizes as well now for when I do really really small stuff. I found that my really small soldering pen does not like this size solder, which I can't even remember what it is, but this is the stuff I use for pretty much everything. So here I go. I'm making it look beautiful, making it shiny. You know, give it a little bit more. Honestly, this is for looks. This isn't for anything super spectacular here. Too much on that one, but whatever. Doesn't matter. There we go. Oh yeah. See, this is what wastes time when you're doing stuff like this. Like, yeah, sure, it looks great and everything else, but I mean, if you look at the board from the factory, they use a completely different process when they do this kind of stuff. They're actually running it through what's called a wave solder. I actually used to do it back in the day when I was younger. I was part of a production team way back in the day. I actually worked in a electronic manufacturer warehouse or whatever you want to call it, workshop. Basically, they had um, two or three wave solderers and assembly lines and stuff. So I actually got to see how it's done. It's interesting how that all now working on it several years later, because that was a long time ago. I worked at that place. You can kind of see the factory what they consider as quality controlled factory soldered down components, right? So if you were to look at the port right beside this, which I don't know if it'll come into shot or not yet, there's one pin right to the left. See, it's not full, right? Like you don't see the pillow on top, right? Is you can see the pin, you can see the solder around it. That's generally how a wave solder, if it's set correctly, that's how you'll see it typically. Is you'll see it with an end result like that on the bottom on hole through stuff anyway. Okay, so this looks like we are pretty much done. I'm just going to go through and clean it 1,000 billion times, see if I can get most of the flux off of there. And once the flux is off, it's going to be back to reassembly time. Generally speaking, I can do an Xbox. Actually, I don't think this is really cut that much. I might cut a couple more pieces out of it, but generally speaking, something like this particular box in particular is yeah, it's about an hour, because this one's super easy to come apart. The PS5 takes forever to take apart because it's got a million screws. People make fun of that when they say, "Oh, the billion screws." They're not kidding. There's so many screws that hold that thing together. Now I've got an electric screwdriver now. It makes things a little bit easier, but the Xbox Series S is so simple to take it apart and fast. It's so modular. Like they really built this one to mass produce. Xbox Series X is, I mean, it's less screws, I suppose, than the PS5, but there's more parts to it. You have to kind of take it out in compartments. And once you've done that, then you can get down to the board fairly quickly, but it's not like this thing. This thing's super, super fast. Okay, so I think I'm done here. I'm just going to let this video run out. There's too much more to say. I'm going to rotate. Yeah. Super cool, super cool. So, okay. I do a little bit. Okay, so after I put a port in, I always check it. You don't see guys do this very often. I mean, I know it's down. I know it's secure. I know it's going to be fine. But um, I like to make sure that I don't have things like blown encoders and stuff like that. So it's always good just to pop a breakout board in and just do a simple diode check. I've got a list of known good off of consoles that I know work. Um, so I just compare that. There's my Series S known good settings. Now, those are going to be a little different console to console. All you're looking for here is that everything is close, right? Where you see big changes is you should see that throughout all boards, but the values will be off a little bit different. Different meters are going to give you different results too, so certainly don't use my numbers. Those are kind of unique to your meter. Um, I mean, if you're using something like a super calibrated meter, I suppose you could take that as a more finished kind of thing, but you'll see me go through pin by pin here, and all I'm doing is I'm just going through it just to look on each pin to make sure it correlates with my list. And this is pretty much the confirmation, right? You've got the port down. Everything's been good. Everything went good on that one. It was a little bit rough at the end when I dropped it, but um, yeah, I mean this is my final check because I don't like to guess. And I certainly don't want to put a console back all the way back together and it not work because I missed a pin or something didn't happen, or maybe the port is blown, right? Or not the port, but the chip. 9 times out of 10, you'll be able to see the fault on here when you're doing a diode check, but you need to know what you're looking for. Sometimes you will see it, sometimes you won't. You put a console all the way back together and the frickin' encoder chip is blown, or you float the ESD on an Xbox Series X and S. Um, if you float that ESD and it doesn't land back where it needs to be, you're going to have nothing but problems. You will not get picture out. You need to deal with that ESD booster. Unique to the Xbox Series, the PlayStations don't use those at all. But you can still have issues with your encoders, right? They all have HDMI encoders, so you just it's always good to know, right? It's always good to test it, make sure it's good. Once you know it's good, then away you go, right? You just start to rock and roll back, and I've done several of these now, so they're fairly easy for me now to put down and be confident they're better than factory, if we want to quote Northridge. Yeah, I mean, it takes practice to make them look that good. I don't ever come in with an iron at the end. It's always done with hot air from the backside usually. I just prefer the way that it mounts the legs. It's really about the legs being secured properly in the board. And it's because of how hot, or sorry, how much of a heat sink those boards are. I think this one is a 10 layer and the Xbox Series X is a 12, I believe. So there's many ground planes in between those layers, and just a huge heat sink. So here you go. Putting these little stickies back. I only melted one this time. I forgot to take the long one off at first. But yeah, make sure you take those out of the way so that you can. Is my camera failing? Yeah, I just want to focus on it. Stick my finger on it, still doesn't do it. Yeah. Awesome equipment. Yep. Yeah, that's the YouTuber pro right there, proing out on fuzzy picture. Oh yeah, I almost had it. It was teasing me. It's been teasing me. Like it goes and then it stops, and it's like, what the hell? Come on, do it. I'm thinking, no. I was like, no, forget it. Give up. I'm done. Okay, so we're gonna roll back through the reassembly here. I'm going to more than likely fast forward most of this. Um, I guess I'll show you this part first. Yes, I do not use regular thermal paste. I watch J2 Cents and a couple other of the computer guys out there, and I really like that KPX thermal paste. It works really good. I have some, my own personal GPU on my computer is all hopped up with cooling plates and stuff over the memory, and then I've used KPX as the thermal agent there. But um, it's basically it's a well-known brand, well-known performance paste. Um, I know a lot of guys will just throw some Arctic Silver on there and call it good, but I like to go just a little bit more. Just make it a little bit better where you can make it a little bit better, right? Um, Cooling is a big thing on these things. They're little tiny boxes with these super heat generating chips in them. And if you look at the PS5 solution for cooling, it's pretty freaking impressive. There's huge heat sinks in that thing to keep that thing cool, and that's got liquid metal and the whole 9 yards on that processor, right? Like that thing is that's hot. That's why it's really important on these consoles. You need to make sure you're cleaning them once in a while, right? Like somebody that's heavy using their console like several hours a day, you should be having it serviced once a year. Period. Like if you're more of a casual player or whatever, maybe once every 2 years. But they're just like computers. They need to come apart and be cleaned. Because if you don't, you're putting all of that stuff underneath that needs to stay cool at risk. And you don't really want to do that. So here there's the heat sinks going back down. And we're just going to go in reverse here. We're going to run through it all. And I'll come back at the end once everything's back together. And we'll continue. Okay, here we go with the final pieces here. Just gonna put the two back screws back in, and I'll be testing it. Probably not gonna do that on camera on this one, but yeah, of course I turn them on, make sure they work. Usually get them synced to the internet. If there's drives, I'll test the drives, stuff like that, right? But um, I'll put these screws back in and then put the stickers that we kept from before up top there. You'll see them, they're just stuck to the back cover. Things are really, you got to be careful with those things. They're easy to lose. So just make sure if you stick them somewhere that you don't bump it or whatever, because they can fly off and you'll never find them. They go into La La Land, as I call it, or No Man's Land, where you'll never see them ever again. Okay, yes, I remember the case wasn't quite secured there. I had to redo that. Okay, just getting that all back together there, and looks like things are looking pretty darn good. Uh, I'm sticking that down there, and then I'll get that down, and you'll see me come in with the hot air here afterwards. It just helps with, you can see in the right-hand corner how that little piece of plastic's kind of like flipped up a little bit or whatever, or the edge isn't quite sitting right. Put the hot air back over it and just kind of warm it up again and stick it down. It smartens it up and makes it look like it's never been touched, which, we always strive for that in this industry. We try and make it look like nobody was ever in there, um, as best as you can. Anyways, it's never 100% perfect, but it's actually triggering me because it's not all the way centered. It's okay though. We can let that go. The main thing is the console's fixed, and that's basically how you take it apart and do a full HDMI swap right there.